Hey, what is up, guys? Parker Gurney here, and today we're going to talk about editing, and more importantly, more specifically, I keep saying that, more specifically, Premiere. I'm going to walk you through the basic workflow, how to take your project start to finish, what the workflow looks like, how to get it done step by step, get it done right. And then we're going to jump into some more special effects, lighting, coloring, things like that, and then how to export with the right codec. Cue the logo.
What is up, guys? Parker Gurney here, and welcome to another exciting tutorial. Today we are going to be going over the basics of Premiere Pro and how to first manage your files, then set up your edit, and then take your edit through the whole workflow. That is namely importing, trimming your clips, doing a rough edit, and then doing some coloring, graphics, and things like that. First thing we're going to do, obviously this is a Windows. I am working on a Windows machine, not a Mac. So user interface is going to be a little bit different, but keys, how we manage the files, the steps we take in Premiere itself, all those should be similar, regardless of what machine you're working on. So first thing we're going to do is plug in our card. We've done so. We're going to go down here to the file. We're going to navigate to our card. So files are going to look a little bit different depending on what camera you're using, how that manufacturer manages their files. I'm working with a Sony, so this is how Sony's layout looks. If we go into private and then M4 root and then clip, that is where my A6300 clips are stored and how they're sorted. So we'll go to 11.7, which is today's clips that I've shot. So first thing we're going to do is we need a place to save all these files so that Premiere knows where to go and look for those files to use. So you're going to save and create a new folder on your computer wherever you want those files to be saved. For simplicity, I'm just going to put it on my desktop. But maybe you have an external drive or a dedicated drive for all of your video footage and files and things like that. For sake of simplicity, I'm just putting it on the desktop. I'm going to title it the title of the project. So I'm going to do Premiere Tutorial. Okay. And then within that folder, I'm not just going to drop everything into that folder. And just have a whole bunch of files floating around. That's a little bit chaotic. I like things to be a little bit more organized than that, and I'll show you why later. You'll actually appreciate having your files organized and managed beforehand getting into Premiere. So I've created the main folder. Within it, I'm going to have some subfolders. First subfolder will be video. And second subfolder will be audio. I want to kind of keep those files separate and organized. Within the video folder, you could just then drop all of your video footage that you have and using for your project into that folder. I think you can get a little bit more organized than that, and definitely you'll appreciate it. Within video, I create a folder for each source of video. So for instance, I've shot with my A6300, so I'll create a folder for A6300 and take all of my footage from that camera source and put it into that folder. Maybe I am recording with a drone, my Mavic, so I'll create a Mavic folder to drop all my footage from my Mavic into that folder. It's just another step to take to keep things very organized. You'll appreciate that because you'll have an easier time going and finding the footage that you need in Premiere when we jump into that. So and then in audio, I usually have like my soundtracks, and maybe you have an external mic that you're using to record audio to get really good quality audio from. Whatever additional audio or however you want to sort that out, that's up to you. This is my final management system. Every editor kind of has their own way of organizing and managing their files. This is just the way that I use and I've come to really appreciate, and it works for me. So if you have a way that works differently from you, I'm not saying this is the only only way to do it. It's just the way that I do it that works for me. So now that we have all of our files, one reason why we manage the files this way and keep everything in one main folder is, let's say that you are editing at work and then you have to take your work home with you. You have a different machine at home that you have to edit on. The great thing about doing it this way is you can take this one folder that has all of your files and contents in it already and transfer that to an external drive. You should probably get in the habit of doing that anyway, just to have a backup. But you drop it on a drive, and then you take that drive home with you, and you can just open this file and pick up right where you left off. When I open Premiere and start a new project, I will tell Premiere to identify this folder to save all of its files to for that same reason, so that you can take it home, take it to a different computer, and pick up right where you left off, as long as you've identified that folder as the folder for Premiere to save all of the project's files into. So I'll show you how to do that right here. So we've imported all of our projects into and organized it into a file. We're going to say new project. Right here in location, we're going to use this and identify that main folder on the desktop. So now Premiere will save all of the files that it creates. It'll save the actual main project file into that file location. And then, if you didn't know this already, but when you're importing and using video files in Premiere, Premiere itself, the project, isn't saving those files. It is just saving where to go find those files. So keep everything in one folder. It makes it a little bit quicker probably for Premiere to do that. So we've created our project. We're going to start in the editing section. So first thing we're going to do is import into the project our files. So the other nice thing about it is, since we've already identified that folder as the folder for Premiere to work within, when we come down here to the import media to start, we double click in this box. It brings up those files already. So we can click on the video file that we created, click import folder, and then that will actually bring in all of our video files that we can start editing with. So we've done import. The second step of the workflow with editing is going to be trimming. So we're going to actually go in and start trimming our clips and getting them ready to start organizing on our timeline. So we'll double click here. That'll load it up into this box. Then we have our bin that has all of our footage in it. So we'll double click on one, and it will again load it up here. We'll go to the beginning of the clip. Okay, so this already is a scratch clip, so we actually aren't going to end up using that one. We'll go on to the next one. We'll go to the beginning of it.
Hey, what is
and obviously there's not a ton to trim off there. I mean, there's a few little frames before we actually start talking, so I'm going to go just before I start talking, and I'm going to click this little bracket. That is marking the in point. So it is trimming. It actually will be easier here to show you here at the out point. So let me talking, and cue intro or outro and out point. Hit the bracket, and you can see this dark area. It's now highlighted this portion of the clip, all right here. And the dark area is actually what it's going to be trimming off. So think of it like trimming fat off your steak. Or if you're vegetarian, I don't know what vegetarians trim, but somebody who loves steak, you're trimming the fat off your steak. So trim that off here. It's leaving this dark area behind, and this clip is then trimmed and ready to throw onto the timeline and actually start organizing into our film. We got to do that with the rest of our clips. So this one's finished. This one I can see from the thumbnail that it has the blue screen from my TV, so I don't want to use that one because I don't want a blue backlight. I'll cue this one up and go to the beginning.
At this point,
so there's not much to trim off at the beginning of that. We'll go scrub through it here real quick. And let's go, right?
and let's do this.
Let's do this out, and we'll trim off that little bit right there. And that concludes our trimming. I'll come back to these two other clips here in just a minute. So that concludes our trimming. We are ready to actually start our rough edit. So far we've imported, which is the first step of editing. We've trimmed our clips so that all the fat and excess that we know we're not going to use is all gone, and we are ready to start editing. So it's time to start dropping clips onto the timeline and create a sequence. A sequence is basically a timeline in which you're going to be working with. So down here on the timeline, you can see right here it says no sequences. So I'm going to filter my content like this real quick and just show you a few things. So right here we have our frame rate. Right now all of the footage we have here and that we're working with is all 23,976. If we scroll down a little bit, we go to the video resolution, it's all 3840 by 2160 or 4K. So all of our clips are the same, but that's not always going to be the case. You're going to be working on timelines where you have multiple video sources and you have a whole bunch of different different clips that don't match up correctly. And when it comes to dropping your very first clip onto the timeline, that step is extremely important, because the very first clip you drop down, it will create the sequence based on that clip's settings. So if I go back to this view and we load this one back up, this is the trimmed clip. I'm going to grab this one and drop it down onto the timeline just by clicking and holding and then dragging down and letting go. Okay, it creates now a sequence named after that first clip, and this sequence matches that video settings. So this is a 4K sequence now. If I have, and I will later, if I have 1080 or lower resolution videos and I bring those in, they are not going to match up with the rest of the clips, and we'll get to that. So now for the rough edit. So we've got all the clips trimmed. We need to start dropping them onto the timeline. Because they're already trimmed, when I bring them down just from the thumbnails, they're already going to be clipping off that excess fat because we've already identified the ins and out points of each clip. In this clip, I know that it says, "Hi, welcome, cue the logo." So we got to bring in the logo to put in between these two. And I have that logo on a previous project, so I'm just going to jump over by going File, Open Recent, open up that project. I know this right here is the logo with its audio, so I'm going to grab that by Command Copy or Control C or Command C. I'm going to close this new project I opened up, and it's going to jump us back over to the old one. By pushing the up and down arrows, it'll actually move the playhead and snap it to the edges of each clip. I'm going to snap it to the end of this clip, tag on by Command Paste, or pasting on that logo, and then I can actually click on this blank space in between. It'll highlight it. If I hit backspace, it'll move my clip over, and now I have one consecutive video. And so, obviously I'm not done, but at this point I'll just say that if I was creating a video, I'm done at this point with the rough edit. Rough edit is, again, just organizing all the clips together until you have one piece of video, one consistent, continuous video, and then at that point you are ready to start coloring, doing your graphics, things like that. So that is the basics of just getting things organized and ready. Obviously there's a whole lot of other tools here. For instance, maybe you haven't trimmed beforehand, and so you actually get down here and you say, oh, this part right here, I actually want this video to cut off early. There's a few different ways we can do that. If I push the C key, if you come over here, this is the razor tool. As you can see in parentheses is C, so the hot button for the razor is C. You can click there, cut it, push V to go back to your selector tool, select that clip that you cut and delete it off. So there's some trimming and stuff that you can do right here. If you don't like trimming it beforehand up here and you actually just want to grab the go back here, if you just want to grab the raw video and bring it down and then trim it down here, you can do that. I've just found that trimming it before bringing it into a timeline is just kind of speeds up the process for me. Again, there's multiple ways to do lots of things. Every editor is going to do things differently. So at this point, I'm going to conclude this as part one of Premiere and getting to know Premiere. This has been the basics with importing your footage, then doing a trim, and then you can start your rough cut before going into your final cut. Your final cut's going to be once your video is all laid out and it's consistent, almost final form, you can then start doing coloring, graphics, adding in music and getting things matched up that way. So this has been the basics of editing. Go ahead and watch part 2 to learn how to color and work with graphics and sound, and just doing the final cut before getting ready to export, and then we'll go over exporting at that point as well.